call me Bradkett!
What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is obviously my review for the 2012 film Django Unchained. So Django Unchained obviously turns 10 this year, which gave me a pretty good excuse to finally sit down and review this film for you guys. This will obviously be spoiler free, so I will not talk about any spoilers. You guys don't have to worry about it. This will be a quick review too. Django Unchained is a film that I still remember when it came out. I remember when it came out, it was very controversial. It was Tarantino's latest film. The same director did Inglourious Basterds, the Kill Bill films, Pulp Fiction, and many more. This was actually my first Tarantino film, believe it or not. I wasn't really familiar with his work, truth be told, before seeing this film. All I really knew was that, again, that it was controversial and that the trailer seemed pretty cool. The cast has Samuel L. Jackson, Jamie Foxx, Kerry Washington, and many more. This is one of those films that the cast is so stacked that even the little roles, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I know that person. And some of the roles, even that are small, while watching it for the first couple times, you don't really recognize them. But then over time, you're like, oh, yeah, I know who that is. Like Walter Goggins, for instance, is in this film. And it took me a while to realize, like, oh, my goodness, that's Walter Goggins, because, he wasn't really a big star. I think it wasn't until The Hateful Eight where I actually realized and noticed, like, him as an actor. But he's good in the role as well. He's not in this film that much. Again, it's a small role, but he's good as well. But that's the thing about all these cast members. Every single one of them pulls their weight. They're all incredible. I would have to say, though, my favorite performance might have to actually be Christoph Waltz, who plays Dr. King Schultz. I think he does an incredible job. And I also love the dynamic between him and Django. I think that him and Jamie Foxx do such a great job. Their chemistry is very palpable. And I especially love also when we add to the mix Leonardo DiCaprio as Calvin Candy. I think that makes it even more interesting. And honestly, this film has a lot of dialogue. There's not that much action, but all the dialogue that seeps into the film is very, very intriguing. It's very suspenseful at times. And it all really nourishes these characters so that way we as audience members feel as though we know them because they're three-dimensional characters. Now back to the action. When there is action that happens, it is very exciting. The Candyland shootout scene is what it's known as. That scene is incredible. That's an action set piece that is easily one of the best of the 2010s. No question about it. It's incredibly choreographed. I love the fact that they actually utilize, real fake blood, which I know is a double negative, but they used, actually that and not CGI, which I thought was really cool. But it's also just, again, the camera movement during those scenes, the soundtrack, which I wanted to mention because I feel like an anachronistic soundtrack oftentimes doesn't work for myself personally, but here it actually feels purposeful and it actually works really well. It's one of my favorite soundtracks in a film. And that's not to say there isn't score. There is. The score, I believe, is done by Ennio Morrison. And when there is a score, it also works really well. But combined, the score and the soundtrack, it's really good. From a sound perspective, this film sounds great. It's also mixed very well. I love the gun sounds. Obviously the clean dialogue sounds very much so where you're able to listen to it and be able to tell what's going on. It all just comes down together really well. But the other thing is that, again, going back to what I said with the blood, practical effects are utilized. I doubt any actual CGI was utilized. If it was at 10 years, honestly, I still can't really tell any of it is CGI because it's really good. Cinematography is gorgeous. Robert Richardson did an amazing job. It looks so good. As I mentioned earlier, the camera movement is just, but the usage of color, the fact that it's shot on film, it all is coming together and it's amazing, honestly. Now, Django Unchained, I get it that it might not be for everyone because, again, it is a controversial film. They do use the N-word a lot. And I know that that's something that, even when this film came out 10 years ago, was something that was questioned. And I think that 10 years later, I think that that's something that even now more than ever is controversial, the fact that Tarantino did that. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up in case you haven't seen the movie, but that is something to kind of take into consideration. Then also, it is a very violent film. And it is a very profane film. So this is not a film for everyone. Like, if you like Westerns, it is a film that's not your granddaddy's Western, if you will. It's a revisionist Western that definitely feels more modern in some aspects, while it's very old-fashioned in other aspects. It's like a Sergio Leone film makes a blaxploitation film. And it works really well. Honestly, the blending of genres here is pretty seamless. And I think that it's quite an impressive film that at 10 years later, it's aged like a fine wine in my eyes. I wasn't the biggest fan of what they did with Dr. King Schultz's character arc, but this time around, I actually think that I've slowly grown to actually appreciate the arc. So that's something also to take into consideration. Some people might not like the arc of his character, but, again, I finally warmed up to it, so maybe you will as well. But overall, Django Unchained, it's one of my favorite films of the 2010s. Again, at age 10, it's aged like a fine wine, and yeah, I'm glad that this is a modern classic. And Django Unchained, for me personally, I will be giving a... But yeah, so guys, let me know your thoughts on Django Unchained. Did you like it? Did you not? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, as well as your favorite Tarantino film down below. And as always, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys later.